Good morning. Please make sure you turn to your new green packet that you got to page 1. Today we're going to be doing day 1 notes right in your packet, so make sure you record them. Your goal today is to solve problems using square roots. It's called solving squares. So we're going to start with some vocabulary here. So the square root property, we want to start with remembering what we know about square roots. So on the side here, I want you to make a little picture. And remember that x squared functions are u-shapes. So we're going to make a u-shape here. All right, and what I want you to notice from that is that no matter where I draw a line, there's always 2 spots or 2 x values that it equals, all right? So the square root property is basically telling you that anytime you have an x squared, you should get 2 answers. So in this case, the square root of 25 is 5, because 5 times 5 is 25, but it's also negative 5, because negative 5 times negative 5 is 25. Or in other words, 5 squared equals 25, and negative 5 squared also equals 25. So that's how we get our 2 answers, right? Next, I want you to make a list of all the perfect squares. So we have 1, 4, 9, 16, 25, 36, 49, 64, 81, 100, 121, 144. And then I'm going to go all the way up to 15. So that's 1, 2 squared, 3 squared, 4 squared, 5 squared, 6 squared, all the way up to 15 squared. And that last one says 225, right? So the goal is that if we have numbers like if we have perfect squares, we should always get nice numbers. If we have non-perfect squares, let's say we have something like this, x squared equals 31. All we do then is we square root both sides, just like we did up top here with 25. But instead of writing 5 and negative 5, we just get a positive and a negative root 31. So we just leave it under the square root. So let's make a little note here. You should get a positive, you should get 2 answers when you take the square root. You should get a positive and a negative. If you can't take the square root, you leave it as positive and negative root. Let's say if we can't take the square root of a number like 7, we just leave it as positive and negative root 7. All right, so let's go ahead and get to our practice problems. Try the first 2 on your own and see what you get. All right, so let's make another little note on the side here. I have lost my mouse. Where am I at? There we go. All right, let's make a note over here that to undo a squared, by square rooting, and that's called square rooting. So the goal is also to always get the x squared alone. So always get x squared alone before square rooting. All right, so over here we just have an x squared. So we're just going to square root both sides. And my answer then would be positive 11 and negative 11, because the square root of 121 is 11. Second one, x squared is already alone as well. The square root of 0 is just 0. There's no such thing as positive and negative 0. All right. Number 3 and 4, go ahead and try those on your own. Remember to always get the x squared alone. So go ahead and pause it. All right, now number 3 is a common error. We think that the square root of negative 16 is 4 and negative 4, but it's actually no solution because we can't take the square root of a negative. So just maybe make a note, no square root of negative numbers. And we'll learn that later on in like an older class that there is something called an imaginary number. But for right now, we're going to say no solution whenever we take the square root of a negative number. All right? This one we have to do some solving too, so let's draw our line. We want to get the x squared alone. So first step is to add 49 to both sides. So I get 100x squared equals 49. Second step is to divide that 100 over. We're not going to take a calculator because 49 and 100 look like nice numbers. So we get x squared equals 49 over 100. All right. And then now the x squared is alone, so we can go ahead and take the square root of both sides. Now, it might seem hard to take the square root of this fraction, but it's really like doing it individually. So the square root of 49 is 7. The square root of 100 is 10, so I just get 7/10. Remember, I get one positive, and my other answer is negative 7/10. Right? All right, so we got about 3 more problems to try. So go ahead and watch this first one, because this first one, I want you to kind of star it, number 5 here. Star this one, make a note. This one is different. So if we notice, all of these ones had 11, negative 11, 7/10, negative 7/10. They all matched. This type, the two answers at the end are not going to be the same number because we can't get to this 5 until the end. So the squared is the first thing we need to get rid of. So we're going to square root both sides. Remember, when we take the square root, we get 2 answers. The difference is I still have x minus 5 because those just cancel out, so I'm still left with what's inside parentheses. So I'm going to have to write 2 equations. I'm going to write x minus 5 equals x minus 5 equals. And remember, the square root of 16 is positive 4 and negative 4. And now I need to still solve for x, so I'm going to add 5 to both sides. My first answer is 9. And add 5 to both sides over here, I get x also equals 1. So do you notice that these two are not the same number? It's not like positive 9 and negative 9. So whenever there are parentheses, so let's make a note. When there are parentheses squared, we get 2 equations. All right, so you need to set it up as x minus 5 equals and x minus 5 equals, and there's still some solving to do then in order to get that, all right? All right, the next 2 you can go ahead and pause and try it because they're very similar to the one we've already tried. So on this one, we need to draw a line. And since the x squared is over here, I'm actually going to add x squared to both sides to get it on this side. So if I add x squared to both sides, I get x squared equals 90. Now the x squared is alone, so I can square root. And this is the example that's a non-perfect square, so I get x equals positive and negative root 90. So remember, if you don't know the perfect square, you just leave it as positive and negative square root of that number. I'm not asking you to simplify. Obviously, you could take a calculator and type it in, but we are not going to do that for the sake of, we might as well just leave it. All right, so this one, I got to get this x squared alone, so I got to get rid of the 128 and the 2. So to get rid of a negative 128, I'm going to add 128 to both sides. It's gone here. All right, so I get 2x squared equals 128. Then I got to get rid of the 2 by division. So I get x squared equals 128 divided by 2 is 64. The x squared is now alone, so I can take the square root of both sides. And this is an example of getting the same answer. The square root of 64 is 8. And negative 8, those are the same numbers because there are no parentheses in the equation. All right, so that is how we solve squares. It's very similar to undoing. So remember, when we're solving, we do PEMDAS backwards, or we undo our operation. So we always do first, we always do plus and minus. Second, we do multiply and divide. That should say multiply and divide. And third, we have to make sure the x squared is alone, or sometimes it's parentheses x squared is alone. And then we square root. All right. So your assignment is the first assignment listed on the green sheet. It is a book assignment. So in order to do the book assignment, you can either use the textbook under your desk, or there is a PDF posted on Google Classroom if that is what you prefer. Please make sure you check your answers when you're done, and then go ahead and make sure that everything gets done today. I will see you guys tomorrow.